Humans are the only primates on the planet who sweat almost pure water from millions of tiny glands all over our bodies. Yet we are also the only ones who spend billions of dollars every year trying to erase the smell it creates. For thousands of years, our ancestors did not just tolerate that odor, they relied on it to stay alive. But the way they finally tried to hide it will completely change how you view ancient history. Imagine walking through a dense, sun-baked forest 10,000 years ago, where every breeze carries a hidden warning. Sweat itself actually has zero smell when it leaves your skin, which sounds completely impossible until you look closer at what is really living on you. Microscopic bacteria waiting on your skin feast on the protein-rich fluids near your hair follicles, and their waste products are what produce that sharp, pungent scent. Early humans actually used that exact scent signature as a built-in tracking device, allowing tribes to identify family members in total darkness, or spot a terrified stranger long before they came into sight. That natural broadcast system kept us safe for generations, but it had one massive flaw that almost proved fatal. Predators like big cats have a sense of smell hundreds of times stronger than ours, and a sweaty group of hunters leaves a trail of scent markers as bright as neon signs. To survive, early hunters started smearing themselves with wet mud, crushed ashes, and animal fat, creating the very first physical barrier against body odor. You might assume they did this just to smell cleaner, but they were actually inventing the world's first tactical camouflage. Charcoal from burned wood absorbed volatile organic compounds, acting like a primitive air filter glued directly to their skin. That simple trick worked so well that it raised an even bigger problem once humans stopped hunting and started building the first crowded cities. When tens of thousands of people packed into the warm, narrow streets of ancient Mesopotamia, personal odor transformed from a wilderness survival tool into a social nightmare. People living in close quarters realized that heavy body odor signaled poor hygiene and disease, creating a massive demand for something that could mask the stench. The Sumerians responded by combining water, alkaline ashes, and cassia oil to scrape their skin clean, inventing the earliest known soap around 4,000 years ago. That early soap did not foam or smell like lavender. It was a harsh, sticky paste meant to strip away grease rather than make you smell attractive. If you wanted to smell pleasant, you had to be exceptionally wealthy, because the rarest scents on earth were worth more than their weight in pure gold. Ancient Egyptians became obsessed with personal aroma, but they did not just spray perfume on their wrists the way we do today. Wealthy Egyptian men and women wore solid cones made of rendered animal fat, beef tallow, and sweet-smelling resins directly on top of their heads during banquets. As the desert heat filled the room, these scented cones melted slowly, trickling fragrant oils down their wigs, faces, and shoulders over several hours. Think about how intense that greasy, melting wax must have felt running down your neck just to keep from smelling bad. That constant dripping kept them scented, but it also trapped fresh dust and sand from the desert air against their skin. To fix the sticky mess, Egyptian priests turned to natron, a natural salt harvested from dried lake beds that destroyed odor-causing bacteria on contact. They rubbed this harsh mineral powder under their arms, essentially creating the first true chemical deodorant in human history. Did natron work well enough to satisfy everyone in the ancient world, or did other cultures find even stranger solutions? Across the Mediterranean, the ancient Greeks had a completely different philosophy that rejected heavy oils entirely. Greek athletes trained completely naked in open-air gymnasiums, coating their entire bodies in olive oil before wrestling in the dirt. After hours of intense sweat and friction, they used a curved bronze blade called a strigil to scrape off the thick layer of oil, dirt, and dead skin. That scraping process removed the bacteria before it could produce a foul smell. But what happened to that scraped-off grime will make your stomach turn. Physicians actually collected that filthy mixture of sweat, olive oil, and dead skin cells, bottled it, and sold it as an expensive medicinal salve for aching joints. People paid top coin to rub the dried sweat of famous athletes onto their own bodies, believing it carried vital physical energy. While Greeks were collecting sweat for medicine, the Romans took bathing to an industrial scale that transformed public health forever.
Roman public baths were massive complexes where hundreds of citizens bathed together every single day, soaking in rooms of varying temperatures. You would think bathing every day would make Romans the cleanest people in history, but those public pools had no continuous filters or chemical disinfectants.
The warm water became a breeding ground for the exact same bacteria people were trying to wash away, meaning you often left the bath dirtier than when you entered. To mask the lingering smell of dirty bathwater, wealthy Romans soaked their clothes in expensive imported oils like frankincense and myrrh. The cost of these imported aromatics was so extreme that it drained vast amounts of gold from the Roman economy, contributing to financial instability across the empire. While Western empires fought odor with oils and hot water, ancient civilizations in East Asia were developing an entirely different approach based on biology and diet.
In ancient China, people noticed that certain foods dramatically altered the smell released by sweat glands. Court officials were required to hold dried cloves in their mouths while speaking to the emperor to ensure their breath was sweet. But they also drank herbal teas designed to cool the body and reduce sweating from within. The Chinese elite realized that internal health dictated external scent, leading them to use powdered minerals like alum under their arms centuries before it appeared in Western remedies. Alum salt created an invisible mineral barrier that constricted pores and killed bacteria without leaving a greasy residue.
If alum worked so well, why did Europeans completely abandon these effective hygiene practices a few centuries later? During the Middle Ages in Europe, a terrifying medical theory took hold that set human hygiene back by nearly 1,000 years.
Doctors believed in the miasma theory, which claimed that diseases like the bubonic plague were carried through foul air and absorbed through open skin pores. Warm water was thought to open your pores and let deadly plague vapors inside, so bathing was suddenly seen as a dangerous, life-threatening activity. Instead of washing with water, medieval nobles changed their linen shirts frequently, believing dry linen drew impurities out of the skin safely. King Louis XIV of France was famous for taking only 2 full baths in his entire lifetime, relying instead on changing his shirt several times a day and applying heavy alcohol-based perfumes.
Imagine living in a palace where hundreds of royals had not washed their bodies with water in months, all relying on heavy musk to cover the stench. The smell was so overwhelming that court visitors often fainted from the dense cloud of competing perfumes mixed with unwashed sweat.
To survive the oppressive stench of city streets and unwashed crowds, wealthy medieval citizens carried small metal spheres called pomanders, filled with spices, dried flowers, and ambergris. They held these scented metal balls directly to their noses whenever they walked through public spaces, creating a tiny bubble of tolerable air.
That constant reliance on heavy perfumes created a massive industry, but it did nothing to solve the root cause of the smell itself. It was not until the late 19th century that a nameless inventor in Philadelphia made a discovery that changed human hygiene forever. In 1889, an unknown inventor created a zinc-based cream called Mum, marking the birth of the world's first commercial trademarked deodorant. It did not stop you from sweating, but the zinc compound neutralized the acid produced by skin bacteria, eliminating the smell at its chemical source. A few decades later, in 1911, a doctor named Jules Murrah invented an antiperspirant called Odor, using aluminum chloride to physically block sweat glands. At first, nobody wanted to buy it, because society considered talking about body odor completely taboo in polite conversation. To fix their lagging sales, the makers of Odor launched an aggressive advertising campaign in popular magazines that reshaped modern social anxiety. The ads warned women that they might smell terrible to their friends and lovers without ever knowing it, turning body odor into a secret social failure. Sales skyrocketed by over 400% in a single year as people rushed to buy products to cure a problem they had never actively worried about before. Today, we spend billions on scented sprays, body washes, and antiperspirants to make sure we do not emit any natural human scent at all. Yet modern science has revealed that our unique personal scent plays a massive subconscious role in how we choose romantic partners and build trust with others.
By completely erasing our natural odor with synthetic flowers and chemicals, we might be masking the very signals that helped our species survive and connect for thousands of years.
Looking back at melting wax cones, sweat-based salves, and medieval fears of warm water, it is clear that humans have gone to extreme lengths just to control how they smell. Which ancient method of dealing with body odor surprised you the most? And would you ever consider trying any of them today?